What's good everyone, welcome back to another Gnawy video. Today we're looking at 11 of your Mario Kart World and Nintendo Switch 2 hot takes. Before getting to the first hot take, I just want to ask you to subscribe so that we can get to 1,000 subscribers as soon as possible, and also so you don't miss out on any of my Mario Kart World and Mario Kart 8 Deluxe videos. We have some absolute banger videos coming up in the coming months, so make sure that you're subscribed so that you get those videos recommended to you automatically. Alright, first let's do the Mario Kart World hot takes. The first one is, Mario Kart World will be the best Mario Kart game in the series because it rewards fast driving, but you can also use your track knowledge to come back. In Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, sometimes the best option is to not go forward on specific tracks, but Mario Kart World will be way different due to Knockout Tour. Alright, first of all, let's address what he means. He's talking about bagging. Bagging in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is essentially when you stay behind at the start of a race to get really good items and then use those items to make a comeback. Sometimes this is the best strategy on some tracks like Cheeseland or Yoshi Circuit, because those tracks have bullet bill extensions or big shortcuts that can help you make a really good comeback, so it's just safer to chill in the back than to be in the pack getting hit by all the items. Now Mario Kart World is going to get rid of this, or at least make it very minor in the game because of, well, first, Knockout Tour. In Knockout Tour, since you kind of have to be staying as far forward as possible so you don't get knocked out, you cannot just be wasting time in the back trying to get items. He does say here that you can use your track knowledge to come back, which is true, and that's also true in every other Mario Kart game. It's just that in this game, Knockout Tour is going to make it so you can't just use these back items to get far forward like it's nothing. Now, I do enjoy bagging. It's a pretty fun strategy. I don't think it's cheap or it doesn't count as like, oh, it's not a racing game because you have to go backwards. Or I'm not always saying, oh, you should have to go forward. It's a racing game. You know, I think it's a fun and effective strategy, but it can kind of get annoying when I just want to race and then I get Cheeseland, and if I try to race then I'm just cooked. But yeah, no, bagging is fun, but I understand why he'd want it gone. Another thing that makes bagging kind of more obsolete is that the items in this game seem to be dramatically, this would mean two things. First of all, you're not as much in danger when you're in the front of the pack, because items like green shells and red shells kind of push you forward, so you don't just stop in place when you get hit and you don't lose a bajillion spots just for getting hit by one red shell that doesn't even take skill to use. Another thing is that the items in the back, like bullet bills and shocks, have been severely nerfed. Shocks only shock the people in front of you, and they make you small for a very short amount of time comparatively to the shocks in 8 Deluxe. Also, I'm pretty sure if you have something above your head, then the shock can't get you, because I guess it's lightning coming from the sky, so it can't hit you. So yeah, the shock has been severely nerfed. And then the bullet bill seems to last a lot shorter. Also, when you go through someone, it doesn't make them spin out, it only kind of knocks them to the side. The next one is that all the P-switches and other free roam collectibles will be more fun than MKDS's mission mode. Alright, I 100% agree with this. Mission mode was difficult and also had a progression structure, meaning the missions would start out easy and then get harder and harder the more you progress through, and you also can't play the later missions without playing the earlier ones. The P-switches and other collectibles in free roam are way more open-ended. I can just go to this one in this part of the map and go to another one in another part of the map, and it doesn't really matter. I can do the different challenges in whatever order, and it doesn't look like they're going to be too hard, which is what I love to see. These aren't as much missions, they're just collectibles and little challenges. So yeah, honestly, I think a lot of people kind of disagree with this because they're nostalgic for Mario Kart DS, but I think a lot of people do also agree with this one. Alright, the next hot take is the battle made it look terrible. Better than 8 for the Wii U, but it still doesn't look great. Honestly, yeah, I agree with this. I think most people do. So yeah, honestly, I think most people would agree with that one. Yeah, it's a pretty case take. Alright, the next one is that it's way too expensive. That is the coldest take I've ever heard in my life. Alright, the next one, the bouncy or cartoony physics look bad. When we first saw a little bit of Mario Kart World in the first look at Nintendo Switch 2 trailer, I felt the same. I felt this isn't really going to show the graphical power of the console, and they look bad, and it's just going to look goofy, and I don't like the direction they're going, especially with that Mario Wonder art style. I don't know, I don't own Mario Wonder, I've played it before. I don't think it's very good. I don't like the talking flowers. The gameplay seems pretty fun. That's not the kind of art style I thought I'd want to see, you know, Mario games in general go. But man, now that we've seen more of this game, especially through the demos and stuff, I think they look good. Honestly, I can tell this with the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe trailers that came out before the game released, and also the Mario Kart World trailers that came out before the game released. They look worse than gameplay. If you look at the Treehouse or the Nintendo Switch 2 experiences, the game just looks way better in that footage. I can't explain it. The game just graphically just looks better. I think he's kind of talking about the whole look of the cartoony art style, but when it comes to the bouncy physics, I don't know, I'm kind of divided on them. I think the game looks good now. I think after everything we've seen, I think it looks good, but I completely understand why he doesn't like it. Alright, those are all the Mario Kart World hot takes that I selected, and now let's get into the Nintendo Switch 2 hot takes. Alright, as an American, even without the tariffs, the Nintendo Switch 2 price is crazy and it's not worth it. This one I think is actually pretty hot of a take, despite what you might think. Now, earlier when Donut Bricks said that Mario Kart World is way too expensive, most people agree with that. However, the Switch 2, I think most people are kind of okay with. I mean, we were predicting that the Switch 2 would cost 400 American dollars, 500 Canadian dollars. It ended up costing 450 American dollars and 630 Canadian dollars. Alright, that's the thing. In Canada, it costing 230 more than the original Switch, that's kind of crazy. But in the US, it costing 150 more than the original Switch, that's not too bad. I also understand why it is that price, you know, the Canadian dollar and everything. I think most people are fine with the actual price of the console. Alright, the next hot take we have is that the Nintendo Switch 2 is not worth the hype, but Mario Kart World is. In short, Nintendo is scamming us into paying $500 in order to play the coolest looking game of all time. Alright, you know what, I agree that Mario Kart World is 100% worth the hype, and it is, at least to me, the coolest looking game of all time. I'd say objectively it's not. You know, it depends on the person. To me, that is the coolest looking game of all time. It's open world Mario Kart, dude. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is my favorite game of all time. This is going to be my new favorite game of all time. But when it comes to say that the Switch 2 is not worth the hype, that's the thing. Now we're going to talk a little bit more about that in the last hot take of this video, but to kind of foreshadow it a little bit, I think the Switch 2 is definitely worth the hype, but yeah, we'll talk about that in a second. Alright, the next hot take is Nintendo may not have fixed Joy-Con drift. Okay, that's not really a take, that's kind of just a fact. We don't know if they fixed it or not. They did say that they're not using Hall Effect sticks, but that doesn't mean that they're not using the same technology that's in Hall Effect sticks, so we can't really know until the thing is out. Alright, the next hot take is that Nintendo should make something unique instead of improving the Switch. Alright, this is what I was talking about when I said we're going to talk about that in a second. So, you think about the Switch 2 versus the Switch. They look very similar. They overall have the same sort of design, shape, pretty much all the same buttons and everything, and even the UI looks the exact same. But here's the thing. Why fix what's not broken? I think the Nintendo Switch's UI itself is near perfect. I like the improvements they made on the Switch 2, the slight, the rounding of the corners, that's one thing I really like. I like how they kind of made the highlighted thing like kind of like a spinny type, what am I even saying? But I also do just like the overall layout and design of the Switch's UI. Now I do wish there were themes and seeing something new would spice it up a little bit, but I think what people are really looking for is just more things on the UI. We need more integration. The little bar on the bottom that has all the icons on the Switch 2? If that maybe had something like Miiverse on it, if that maybe had some more broad social features on it, I think that would be pretty good. And I think there could be a few little changes that could have been made. Maybe the game chat icon could have been put somewhere up with like your icon up at the top, maybe inside there or something. I don't know how they would have made that work well. Maybe some things could have been better, but honestly, I think the general design of the UI itself is pretty good. And yeah, it'd be cool to see something new, but why fix what's not broken? Same thing goes with the actual design of the Switch. It's kind of perfect, at least for now. Like, I don't think there's ever going to be a step away from the Switch in general. Maybe VR. I think the only way we can see anything different is with VR, because having a portable handheld and then a stationary console combined in one it's just something insane. I think it's close to being the best of both worlds, and the best move is to stick with the Switch design. It just is the best way of making a console. There's a reason that it sold much more than the Xbox Series X and S. It's a reason it sold way better than the PS5 and the PS4. Alright, the next one is that paying money to learn about how the system works is just absurd. I think that is also one of the coolest takes I've ever heard, but I kind of disagree a little bit. Now, I do think that the welcome tour should be included on the console, but it's not absurd. Like, you don't need this to learn how the console works. I think people are kind of being a little over dramatic with this. It's just a cool way to show off, all the features of your new system, and I think $10 is fine to pay for that. And also, here's the thing. People are saying that Reggie was pushing to have Wii Sports included with the Wii, and how, the executives at Nintendo didn't want that. That's not true. They were actually thinking about 3 different games. I believe they were Wii Sports, Wii Play, and maybe something else. I think Miyamoto wanted Wii Play, Reggie wanted Wii Sports. So Reggie was pushing for Wii Sports to be included, yeah. It's not like they weren't going to include a demo game for the Wii at all. They were always going to do that. So I think this situation is a little bit blown out of proportion. But yeah, I think that it should be included in the system anyway. Alright, the last hot take we have here is it's basically the Switch 1 not worth getting. I think I already kind of talked about this. I just think that it's really a generation about more power and more experience. See, the leap from the Wii U to the Switch was not very big in power and also in experience. You think about it, the Switch's most successful game is a port of a Wii U game, and a lot of successful Switch games are ports of those games. And even if they're not, they're very similar. Let's look at Super Smash Bros. Ultimate versus Smash 4. Yeah, I know there's differences in the game. I don't want any Smash nerds in the comments just getting mad at me for this, but they are very, very similar games to play. You also look at Switch Sports versus, Wii Sports, which is a Wii game from 2 generations ago, but there's also, Wii Sports Club or whatever it's called in the Wii U. An exception to this would be Mario Odyssey, and I think that we're just going to get a lot more of those leaps. Like, you see the first 3D Donkey Kong in 26, 27 years. And we're seeing an open world Mario Kart on this thing. I think this is going to be a much more of a power and better experience system rather than this new big innovation. Alright guys, some of those hot takes were pretty valid, while some were absolutely not. Let me know your hot takes about either the Nintendo Switch 2 or Mario Kart World in the comments below. And if I get enough of them, I'll make a second video. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you again very soon.